Let me tell you a secret about love that most of us learn far too late. The most dangerous thing you can be in a relationship is not difficult, or demanding, or complicated. The most dangerous thing you can be is easygoing. I'm talking about that specific kind of easy, the kind where you smile while a silent scream is building in your throat, the kind where you nod enthusiastically while every cell in your body protests. It is the politeness of self-erasure, the agreeableness that slowly poisons a connection from the inside out, leaving behind an empty shell where love used to be. It is the quiet heartbreak of a relationship dying, not from a grand betrayal, but from 1,000 tiny acts of being accommodating. For a man we'll call Alex, this poison tasted like salt water and exhaustion. Imagine this. Alex has finally found someone wonderful. Let's call her Jordan. Jordan is kind, funny, and looks at Alex in a way that makes them feel seen for the first time in years. There are late-night talks, shared laughter, and a warmth that begins to thaw the frozen parts of Alex's heart. It feels like coming home. Then, one day, Jordan starts talking about sailing. It's their passion, a small sailboat shared with friends, weekends on the lake. Jordan's eyes light up when they describe the feeling of the wind catching the sail, the gentle rock of the water. They are desperate for Alex to love it too, to share in this joy that is so central to their life. They even mention, with a shadow of past pain, an ex who hated the boat, how it became a point of tension, a crack that eventually split their world apart. And so, what can Alex do? Alex, who feels the dizzying nausea of seasickness just looking at a ferry. Alex, who finds the vast, open water more terrifying than peaceful. Alex, who craves a quiet weekend with a book, not a battle with ropes and a tiny swaying stove. But the fear of becoming that other person, the one who broke Jordan's heart, is greater than the fear of the water. So Alex nods, puts on a brave, easygoing smile, and becomes the good sailor. For weeks, Alex plays the part. They praise the surprisingly cramped cabin, admire the view, help hoist the sails. They pretend to sleep through the rocking nights, waking up exhausted, with a headache pounding behind their eyes. But inside, a rebellion is brewing. The quiet scream is getting louder. They want to yell at Jordan for not seeing their misery, for being so wrapped up in their own pleasure. They fantasize about diving into the cold water, swimming to shore, and just disappearing. The love that felt like a warm blanket now feels like a cage. Alex is not on a sailboat. Alex is adrift in a sea of their own silent resentment, all because they chose to be easy. This story, Alex's story, might not be about sailing for you. Maybe it's about your partner's love for grueling all-day hikes when your body aches for rest. Maybe it's their passion for loud, crowded concerts when all you want is quiet. Perhaps it's a specific way they need to be touched, or not touched, that feels alien or uncomfortable to you. Or a deep-seated religious belief that you cannot share. It's the 1,000 ways, large and small, that our inner worlds can fail to align. And in the face of that misalignment, we are taught that the loving thing to do, the right thing to do, is to be accommodating, to bend, to make ourselves smaller to fit into the spaces they have carved out for us. If this story of the unspoken need, this silent sacrifice, is already resonating with you, take a moment to subscribe to Mind Decode Explained. We journey through these intricate landscapes of the mind together, exploring the paths that lead us back to ourselves and to each other. The tragedy is that we were never taught the language of our own needs. In the grand curriculum of life, alongside mathematics and history, there was no class called Emotional Communication 101. No one handed us a textbook on how to voice a gentle complaint, how to express a boundary without building a wall. We are, most of us, emotional illiterates, stumbling through the most important conversations of our lives with a vocabulary learned by accident, often from households where needs were seen as burdens, or worse, were met with anger or dismissal. This is where the foundational work of psychologists like John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth on attachment theory becomes so illuminating. Our earliest experiences with caregivers create a blueprint, an internal working model for how relationships are supposed to function. If, as a child, your needs for comfort, attention, or validation were met with consistency and warmth, you likely developed a secure attachment. You learned, on a deep, pre-verbal level, that your needs are valid and that it is safe to express them. You believe that you are worthy of care. But, for many of us, the blueprint is flawed. If your caregivers were inconsistent, sometimes available and sometimes not, you might have developed an anxious attachment style. You learned that you had to amplify your needs, perhaps through crying or protest, to get them met. As an adult, you might fear that if you don't cling tightly, you will be abandoned. The idea of stating a need that conflicts with your partner's feels terrifying, because that conflict might be the very thing that drives them away. So, like Alex, you silence yourself. You become a chameleon, hoping your perfect compliance will earn you the love you crave. Conversely, if your caregivers were consistently dismissive or rejecting of your needs, you might have developed an avoidant attachment style. You learned early on that expressing needs leads to disappointment or punishment. Your strategy for survival became self-reliance. You learned to suppress your needs, to pretend you don't have any. As an adult, you might pride yourself on your independence, keeping partners at an emotional arm's length. Intimacy feels threatening because it requires a vulnerability you were taught to see as dangerous. Expressing a need feels like a sign of weakness, a crack in your armor of self-sufficiency. So when Alex is on that boat, miserable and silent, it's not just about sailing. It's about a lifetime of programming that says, your needs are inconvenient. Your feelings are a problem to be solved. To be loved, you must be easy. We carry a common and deeply damaging misconception that a good partner is a low-maintenance partner, that the ideal relationship is one free of friction, but a life without friction is a life without movement. The true enemy of love is not disagreement. It's the festering resentment that grows from unvoiced truths. The real work of love is not to find someone who is a perfect mirror of ourselves, but to learn how to dance with someone who steps to a different rhythm. The path out of this silence is not to suddenly start yelling our truths from the rooftops. A sudden explosion of pent-up frustration is just as destructive as the silence that preceded it. Alex screaming at Jordan that they hate the boat would be a moment of catharsis, perhaps, but it would also be a moment of deep relational damage, born of blame and accusation. The solution is not louder, but clearer. This is the essence of what Dr. Marshall Rosenberg developed in his work on nonviolent communication, or NVC. It's a paradigm shift from a language of blame and judgment to a language of observation, feeling, need, and request. Think of it as a simple, 4-step recipe for expressing a difficult truth. First is observation. You state a concrete, factual observation without any evaluation or judgment. For Alex, it wouldn't be, "You're so selfish for dragging me out here every weekend." It would be, "For the last 3 weekends, we've gone sailing." It's neutral. It's undeniable. Second is feelings. You state the emotion that the observation triggers in you. This is about owning your own emotional experience. It's not, "You make me feel miserable." It's, "When we are on the boat, I feel anxious and exhausted." You are using I statements, taking responsibility for your own feelings, rather than projecting them as an accusation. Third is needs. This is the crucial, often missed step. You connect your feeling to an unmet need. What core human need is not being met in this situation? It could be a need for safety, for rest, for comfort, for autonomy. For Alex, it might sound like, I feel this way because I have a deep need for rest and quiet on the weekends to recharge from my week. Fourth is request. You make a clear, positive, and actionable request. Not a demand. A request leaves open the possibility of a no. It's an invitation to your partner to help you meet your need. Alex wouldn't say, "We can never go sailing again." A request might be, "Would you be willing to brainstorm with me some ways we can spend our weekends that feel restful for me and are still enjoyable for both of us?" Or, "Would you be open to alternating our weekend activities, where one weekend we sail and the next we do something quiet on land?" This framework is not a magic script that guarantees you'll always get what you want. Its magic lies in something far more profound. It changes the goal of the conversation from winning an argument to fostering a connection. It invites your partner into your inner world with clarity and respect, rather than attacking them from the outside. It dismantles that other pervasive myth in relationships, the idea that, if they truly loved me, they would just know. No one is a mind reader. True love is not about psychic intuition. It's about the courage to teach each other who we are. And that requires courage. Because every time we state a need, we make ourselves vulnerable. We are laying a piece of our authentic self on the table and waiting to see how it will be received. Researcher and storyteller Brené Brown has spent decades studying vulnerability, and her work powerfully reframes it not as weakness, but as our most accurate measure of courage. She writes, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. To stand before your partner and say, 'This is me. This is what I need. It might be different from you, and that scares me,' is an act of immense bravery. It is the raw material of genuine intimacy. For Alex to have this conversation with Jordan is to risk the comfortable illusion of their perfect harmony. But the reward is the possibility of something far more real and resilient, a love that can hold two different, whole people. So, let's imagine that moment of breakthrough. After another sleepless, nauseating night on the boat, Alex knows something has to change. The resentment is becoming a poison, and it's starting to kill the love they feel for Jordan. They decide to try, not with an explosion, but with a quiet, planned conversation. They might wait for a calm moment, perhaps over dinner later in the week, away from the boat itself. They would start with reassurance, a layer of safety for the difficult truth to land on. "Jordan, I love you so much. The last few months with you have been some of the happiest of my life, and that's why this is so important for me to talk about." Then, the observation and the feeling, spoken gently. "I've noticed that when we spend the weekend on the boat, I come back to work on Monday feeling completely exhausted and anxious. I've tried to push through it, but I have to be honest with you and with myself. I get very seasick, and the constant motion is really difficult for my body." Now, the need. "It's because I have a really strong need for a quiet, stable environment to feel rested and safe. That's just how my nervous system is wired." And finally, the request. Framed as a collaboration. "I absolutely love that sailing brings you so much joy, and I want you to have that in your life. I'm wondering if you would be open to exploring ways that we can both get what we need on the weekends. Maybe we could find some activities we both love to do together, and you could still have your sailing time with your friends." In this moment, Alex is not being difficult. Alex is being honest. Alex is not complaining. Alex is being an active, engaged partner, caring for the health of the relationship. They are dismantling the problem before it dismantles them. And what happens next? This is where the journey gets real. Jordan might respond with incredible grace and understanding. "Oh my God, Alex, I had no idea. Thank you so much for telling me." Of course, we can figure this out. Your comfort is more important than any weekend on the boat. In this scenario, the vulnerability is met with empathy, and the bond between them deepens, becoming stronger and more authentic than it ever was when it was based on a pretense. Or, Jordan might react defensively. They might feel hurt or rejected. "So you were just faking it this whole time? I can't believe it. My ex was the same way." Their own attachment wounds might be triggered. And if this happens, it is painful, yes. But it is also crucial information. If a partner cannot meet a gentle, honestly expressed need with at least a willingness to listen, if they respond with blame or anger, they are showing you that they may not have the capacity for the kind of relationship you deserve. As painful as it is better to discover this truth early, through a gentle conversation, than years down the line, after a mountain of resentment has buried all the love. To discover this is not a failure on Alex's part. It is a successful act of self-preservation. It is the moment you realize that you cannot build a home in a place that has no room for you. This is why the skill of expressing our needs is not a bonus feature in a relationship. It is the very foundation upon which a lasting structure is built. There is a limit to how long we can endure in silence before our love begins to curdle. We cannot keep pretending to enjoy something until we begin to despise the person who asks it of us. We must address the small cracks when the goodwill is still abundant, when the desire to find a solution is still stronger than the desire to be right. We are allowed to be complex. You are allowed to be complex. You do not need to have normal sleep schedules, or normal social batteries, or normal preferences in any area of your life. The only thing you truly need is the skill to gently and clearly invite someone into your world, to show them the unique landscape of your soul. You need to be able to explain how the world looks and feels through your eyes. The goal is not to be identical. The goal is to be understood. The journey starts with a radical act of self-compassion, giving yourself permission to have your needs in the first place. To understand that it is not a character flaw to dislike sailing or hiking or crowded parties. It is simply a feature of who you are. Your needs are valid. Your feelings are your truth. From that place of self-acceptance, you can then learn the language to share that truth with another. It begins by starting with reassurance. It continues by speaking your experience with I statements. It deepens by giving the other person space to disagree, to have their own reality. You are not seeking perfect agreement, only kind acceptance of the difference. And it culminates in the quiet, powerful belief that you can be fully yourself and still be worthy of love, as long as you learn to speak your truth with gentleness. You should accept nothing less from the people you love, and most importantly, you should accept nothing less from yourself. Your truth, spoken with gentleness, is not a burden. It is a gift, an invitation into the real, beautiful, complex world that is you. And that is the only place where true love can ever hope to grow.